Welcome to another live stream, Maximum Gangstalking. That's right. Yeah, we're here to talk about it. And hopefully you guys are having a good weekend. We're moving through that a little bit cooler around here. Gosh, I think Thursday was 106 up in Big Sky Country where I'm from. And I can't imagine, some of the other places out there down in Vegas or maybe down in Phoenix. I haven't even looked. But it's been pretty hot this summer. But anyway, I'll just kind of ramble on until we get some people in here. I like to do live streams on the weekends. I know targeted individuals deal with a lot of isolation and deprivation, and some people become shut-ins. That's just part of what happens to targets after they get assaulted. They're dealing with all kinds of different harassment, and it fits in with the theme that we're going to talk about. I focus on a lot of things. I've talked about some of the stuff that's going on. We can look at the Trump assassination, I guess, or the attempted assassination, because it does fit into gangstalking. Not that Donald Trump is a targeted individual. I would imagine. There's a little different scenario going on there, but he lives in the same place that we do. Okay, believe it or not, he might not be dealing with the same thing that most targets are dealing with. He's obviously not dealing with food tampering, or at least yet that I know of, or some of the workplace harassment. People aren't attacking him in the same way, but he is being attacked. And the fact that you got a 20-year-old kid with acne who was spotted 2 hours before and put on basically a list of suspicious characters. They were watching him fly a drone around, man. And, you guys have all seen the videos, and he gets off 8 shots, right? And then the excuses that were given were just ridiculous, right? Oh, that's a sloped roof. And of course, after the whole thing's over, you guys have all seen the body cam footage. They're running around up there, They didn't have on special shoes or anything. There wasn't, I used to do roofing when I was younger. And that's not really a sloped roof, that's pretty much flat for anybody that's got reasonable health. So, it's just the excuses are, hold on a minute. I've got a bit of a disturbance here. Every now and again, you do run into something around the property. Hold on, it won't be too long here. And let's see here, what's going on? Okay, well, anyway, I'm not even going to go into it. But as far as the excuses that were given, none of it adds up. And to me, it's related to gang stalking in the sense that, when targets are attacked, when they're dealing with all these things, when they're dealing with harassment, at their workplace, or maybe even in their family, or, at a doctor's office, a dentist's office, wherever it is that they're dealing with this whole thing, even if it, doesn't involve the plausible deniability that, of course, gives the excuse, of the people around the target is, well, I don't know what you're talking about. That person was just whistling, or, I don't know what they were talking about. Maybe the person was just thinking to themselves out loud. The fact that they were talking about things that only you would know that happened in the privacy of your own home 2 nights before that, in a conversation with your best friend on the phone it sounded like, or whatever. So there's always that plausible deniability. But even if it's not there, you still have the possibility of this whole thing going on, and nobody seems to notice it, right? And with the Trump assassination attempt, so you got the same thing going on. All these people are, oh look, there's a kid crawling around with a gun on a roof, or no, look, he's walking around with a rangefinder, right? Or whatever. None of it adds up. And then the fact that he gets off 8 shots. At first, I thought he only got off 3 shots, and the rest of those rounds that you hear, the rapid fire succession, I thought that was coming from the sniper team. But really, they only fired 1 shot, I think, maximum of 2 shots. right? And so how is that even possible, right? How is that possible, man? And then you look at the Pac-Man video where the whole thing happened within the perimeter that should have been secured. None of it adds up. None of it makes sense. You got a kid in a BlackRock video that ends up being the patsy. In my opinion, it smells like a cover-up. And he tries to join the high school shooting club, and he sucks so bad that he can't even be on that, and yet he managed to outsmart the Secret Service and the cops and almost kill the president. Man, is that realistic? I don't think it is. There's other things that I haven't mentioned that go along with that, as far as the trajectory and all these things and so on and so forth, including the Men in Black guy that was up there, but anyway, the whole thing doesn't add up, right? How is it possible? Because you are surrounded by these people all the time. You are. Okay, we've talked about that. How many people out there know about this stuff? How many of these zombies or vampires are there out there? That's what I like to call them, right? The Walking Dead, right? We've discussed that before. A lot of people will bring the biblical criteria into gangstalking. Some people will turn it into a soteriological doctrine. I don't do that. But the fact remains that the people who are doing this stuff, unless they're just manipulated for a short period of time or something, which can happen, and they can inadvertently be drawn in, maybe, are unregenerate, right? Or even worse, they're, even beyond just being spiritually manipulated, they're possessed or very seriously oppressed. Okay. And, they're all around us all the time. Hold on a minute. I'm getting a kitty attack. What are you doing? Lay down. Lay down. You decided you're going to, okay, you want to need the blanket. She's being a little cutie butt. I usually put her out in the living room because she has a tendency to interrupt me, but whatever. We'll keep going. But you're surrounded by these people all the time. Okay. A lot of targets will talk about different scenarios where they will believe that the whole thing has been set up and all these people are being paid by the CIA or whatever, right? There must be some kind. How much money are they putting into this whole thing anyway to organize this? Well, it doesn't have to work that way, right? And I've talked about not only the themes, but the mechanism of gang stalking, in the sense that this world, as far as the hierarchy, as far as the puppetry that you are dealing with, it's been there. It was there before you got here, and it goes from the spiritual dimension on down through high positions of the government into the fraternities and all these little things, and people are literally being manipulated and controlled and blinded and so on and so forth. But they were always there. Okay. You wonder that when you start experiencing gang stalking, it's like, how are these people connected? Sometimes they are. Okay. That can work that way. Right. There are people maybe involved in fraternities or witchcraft or whatever, but I've seen this stuff happen to where, even in different geographical locations, there's no way they would have had time to set this stuff up. And I'm talking about decades ago. Right now, where you have people walking around with smartphones and, collaborating on the computer and all these different possibilities that, the internet provides. You can almost speculate that, but I've seen it way before that. Okay. I've seen it way before that. And sorry, the kitty is just, I should have put her outside. They didn't have to be that way though. Okay. It really doesn't. And rather than, assuming that the CIA has hired all these people, or there's some, part of some type of MK Ultra program, or the government with unlimited resources spending all this money to chase you around to the Quickie Mart 400 miles away from your hometown when you go on a run, and follow you over to the Motel 6, and, put agents next to you and, pay off the clerk at the hotel so they can get in there and fume you and, to watch you as you contemplate committing suicide. It doesn't have to work that way. It can, and sometimes it does, but it doesn't have to. Okay. So boy, this cat is really attacking me. Hold on, guys. I'm gonna have to close the door here. Sorry. Oh. Oh. She's been napping for the better part of the day, and she's feeling frisky. And anyway, so back to about that, back to where we were. So just examples like that, where I mentioned before that the whole world is dealing with that, right? Targeted individuals deal with situations similar to the assassination attempt on Donald Trump on a daily basis, right? How'd that happen? And if anybody was to ask you before all that happened, would it be possible for some kid with acne, 20 years old, to fly a drone around at a rally, get up, on a roof, 150 yards from the president with a gun, with everybody watching him, and just about kill him and get off HE? You said, no way in hell. No way. Okay. I would have bet all the money in my bank account that wouldn't even be possible. Right. And I've heard testimonies from people, that as far as the security around Trump, even when he would just fly into a city, you have, people, on rooftops, and, highways blocked off and everything. I mean, there's just no way, but it happened, right? Against all odds, the targeted individuals are dealing with harassment in broad daylight, and they're dealing with seemingly logistically impossible scenarios, and it's all around. It's maximum gang stalking. It is beyond gang stalking. Okay, it's not just a group of people. A lot of people don't like the term gang stalking. It's a gang. It's a gang of people, and they're coming after you. And you call it whatever you want. It's there. Okay, and they're around you all the time. What percentage of the population it is, I don't know, but it's enough to pull this stuff off. And it was enough to where, unless you're going to believe that up in Pennsylvania, that the police, the Secret Service, and the multiple other groups of individuals were in a collusion to watch Donald Trump get shot, then something else is going on. Okay, and it's beyond, some type of conscious collusion where you have a deep state conspiracy. I'm not saying it doesn't involve that. I'm saying that there's more going on. It's just like what a lot of the targets out there that are experiencing higher forms of harassment will say, well, you don't know, de facto, I'm dealing with the government. You probably are. Okay, there's a good chance that if you're one of those people dealing with higher forms of harassment, you could be dealing with implants. You could be dealing with all kinds of directed energy weapons, V2K and demonic stuff, people being paid, disinformation campaigns, all kinds of things are happening to you. Okay. But I'm just saying that, when it happens to targets, when they're out there, when they're driving by the accident scene, and the first responder looks at them and does a sign thing and whistles, or gives them the stink eye, or they're playing little games and stuff. It doesn't mean that they set it up for you. It doesn't mean that it was all some type of organized thing that cost $50,000, and they all got together at a town meeting and decided to do it. It doesn't have to happen that way, because they're already there. They're already around. The world is full of it. The hierarchy that has infiltrated the government, that is involved in things like MK Ultra, that's involved in things like COINTELPRO or other sub programs, or just the Fabian socialists, or the breakdown of America. All of it is something that is representative of an agenda that goes even beyond the human element. Okay, and the targets that are dealing with gang stalking at a higher level, where it's just beyond, it's maximum gang stalking. Well, it involves that. It involves, that infrastructure that is around you. There was another video that I was watching, and I don't know if you guys have seen this one. It'll make you pissed off. It's disgusting. Have you guys seen that video that has to do with that? I think her name was Sonia Messing, that unfortunate woman out in Illinois who got shot in the face by that cop. Did you guys see that? It was disgusting. Okay, and if you haven't seen it, Google it. But just to give you a breakdown, I thought, what's this all about? So these cops were called over to this gal's house, and I've talked about this before too. That if you're a targeted individual, you're going to deal with the break-ins. You're going to deal with things. People are going to try and provoke you. And one of the things that they like targets to do is to call the police and try to explain this stuff to them. Okay, well, because normally when someone gets thrown into this whole thing, and I've talked about this before, it's a complete reality flip in a sense that you're expecting logic. You think the framework that you understand the world is made up of, which is false, is real, and you can just, these people are attacking you and they're doing all these things. But you just call the cops, right? Just, it should be fairly simple. How could people get away with this stuff? It doesn't make so. A lot of people will call the police, and then what happens to targets? Well, they try to, to explain what's going on. They might even deal with a perp. They might even be dealing, with a cop or something. It's not like the police department's necessarily after you or in control of gangstalking, but they're working everywhere. They're in the government. They're in high positions of power. They're, doing all that stuff. They're involved in law enforcement. It's just like the Freemasons, the infrastructure that I talked about, where they use that pyramid methodology where they're just basically everywhere in positions of power and they have that influence and there's no getting away. Okay. But getting back, to the thing that happened out there in Illinois, she calls 911 and the cops come out there because she thought she heard something, right? There's a prowler. And so this cop is looking all over the place. And he comes back in there, and this woman suffers from like a type of mental illness or whatever. She was having a difficult time or whatever. Who knows? Maybe she is a target individual. Maybe she is being covertly drugged. Who knows? Maybe she's even one of those government guinea pigs for all I know. But I don't know that. I'm just speculating. But because when I see somebody who's diagnosed with mental illness, I don't know. I have a lot of questions when it comes to that. But getting back to the point. And so they're talking to this girl and says, we couldn't find anybody. What's going on with you? And he went, why'd you call us? And they asked her a few simple questions, and she was having a difficult time. To me, it looked like she wanted someone to possibly take her to the hospital is what it looked like, because they were asking her simple questions, what's your name? And she kind of, I don't know. And then, where's your ID? Well, I got paperwork, she said. Let me go get the paperwork. So she's sitting in her living room, and the cops are sitting there, and she goes into the kitchen, okay, and she had some, I don't know what she was going to be making, some ramen noodles. What she was doing, she was boiling some water, and she had this pot of boiling water on the stove, and it must have been boiling or something, so she was going to take it off there. So she was going to get the paperwork, but she's like, I got to get this pot of boiling water. So she grabs it, and the cop said something about it, and that lady said. And as far as I'm concerned, this was it was, to me, it looked like a manifested demonic entity through this cop, because also he mentioned something about the boiling water, and she said something like, "Oh, I can't believe that. I rebuke you in the name of Jesus." Okay. Now, is that a reason to freak out and shoot somebody in the face? Because as soon as she mentioned the name of Jesus, he said, "You better not." And he said something about hell. Go ahead and look at the video, guys, and tell me what you think on the breakdown of what he was saying to her. You better not, I'll shoot you in the effing face, you BICTH. And he pulls his gun out, right? Okay. And so she lifts the pot of water up in front of her face to try, because she's horrified at this point. He's pointing the gun at her face. Right. And she's trying to duck and move around, and she's holding that pot of water up in front of her face. And the guy just starts shooting, right? Shoots her right in the face. Right. So she grabs a pot of water. He said something about it. I'll rebuke you in the name of Jesus. You better not. That's something about hell. I'll shoot you in the face. And then she starts getting scared, and he just does it. Right. That's the whole thing to me looked like, because, if you're dealing with, somebody who's possessed, you talk about Jesus, or you mention, rebuking them in the name of Jesus, you're going to get a reaction. They talk about that. Not that I subscribe to Catholicism or anything, but you start mentioning the name of Jesus, and if somebody's possessed or, they're oppressed in a very intense way, they're going to react. But, why does that matter? Because you're surrounded by these things. Okay. you're surrounded by people. It's like the Freemasons. I've talked about that. It's not that they're necessarily getting together and planning your demise and doing all these things, particularly to you, right? Like they got your house bugged and cameras in there and everything, and the Freemasons are all getting together and looking at all these targeted individuals on this multi-screen or something. The thing is that they are in a place where they are being, drawn in to this mechanism that is involved in the infrastructure of the world. And there are spiritual entities that are in control of that stuff. The Shadim, the Shadu, the principalities and powers that I've talked about. When you look into the origins of Freemason, the organization or the Rosicrucians or the Illuminati, all that stuff goes back to Egypt, which is the first head of the dragon after the Tower of Babel, when God handed over the world to these principalities and powers. Okay, it's very important to understand that when you're getting into biblical prophecy and understanding what you're dealing with as far as the infrastructure around you, and who's in charge of this place. Okay, because the prince of the power of the air, or Satan, he's in control of the world right now. It's important to know that. Okay, the things that are happening are being orchestrated by them, and God, in my opinion, and the way I view it, he intervenes. Okay, in a lot of different ways, and one of the ways he intervenes is that he works these things out for your benefit. The way he has, constructed his creation, the possibilities and impossibilities, is it's never too late for him to do something. Whether you die or get attacked or, deal with the abrasive circumstances you're dealing with as a target individual. A lot of people are out there and say, well, how could this be good? How could this work out for my good? Look at what's happening. I'm paranoid. I've become a shut-in. I used to have friends. I feel like I'm losing my mind. Or whatever you're dealing with, you might be dealing with financial destitution. Well, how can that be good? Well, it's not something that he's ordaining, but he is able to work that stuff out, maybe to break you down or to show you what is really going on, so that you wake up to what is important. And it's not just about you either. Okay, there's a lot of stuff going on here. It's not just about me. It's not just about you. It's not just about targeted individuals. There's a type of corporate purpose for everything. Okay, and I've talked about that before when it comes to gangstalking. The people that are doing this stuff to you, they're building their own little labyrinth, right? And I've mentioned that before. When you give in to the games and you react or whatever, and you play into this whole stalking scenario, whatever it is, that's what they want. They want a reaction. They want you to confront them. They want you to get emotional. They want you to get angry. They want you to be thinking about this stuff all the time, and they want you to be consumed with it because they want to control you. They want to manipulate. They want to feed off you. They want to experiment on you, right? They want to have power. And the only way they're going to be able to do that is if they can get you thinking about things. They can control the trajectory of your mind. That they can distract you and trigger you and invade your psyche and start reprogramming you. Okay, that's what gangstalking is ultimately, right? Along with being discredited and covertly murdered, which is really what it is. But when you play into that whole thing, you react to that's what they want to do. But they're playing into what the kingdom of darkness is doing. They're playing that game, right? So you got two sides to that coin. One side is you kill two birds with one stone. They're the hunters. Okay, the kingdom of darkness, they're the ones that are consuming and devouring and causing war and they're highly motivated to do it. They're not just running around with warrants for their arrest. You hear these demon slayers and all these people talk about casting demons out and sending them to the abyss and sending them back to hell. What are you talking about? Okay, they literally have a job to do. Okay. And they're allowed to do what they're doing within the parameters that God has decided in his sovereignty. And, that's just the way it is. You're not sending them to the abyss. It's like what was said to Jesus when he went out of the territories of the Hebrew, territory over there, and he was met by the demoniac possessed by a legion of demons. And they said, we know who you are, right? They knew what was going to happen, and they understood what was prophesied in Psalm 82, that Jesus was going to take back the nations, right? That's what the gospel is. That's the age of grace that we're in, the 2,000 years. We have 49 years left. Okay. What is that? Well, and I'm not saying I know when the end is or when Jesus is coming back, but as far as the Dead Sea Scroll calendar is, that's what it is. What is it? It's an infiltration of the gospel, of the power of God, of the Christ, the Messiah, the prophesied Melchizedek, right, to take back and bring in a harvest, right, of people who would believe the gospel, to please God to save them that which believe the gospel, right? And it's an infiltration. They want to prevent that, okay? But they knew that eventually the Messiah was going to come and that he was going to take the world away from them, right? But they didn't know how he was going to do it. They didn't know what was happening. So when Jesus crossed over the Sea of Galilee, or he sent out the 72, which represented the table of nations, out into Gentile territory, that was on their turf, right? You'll have power over the enemy to trample on scorpions and snakes and so on and so forth, and all the power of the enemy. What was it? Those guys didn't even end up being true disciples. They ended up walking away from Jesus, right? But he gave them temporary power to do it, right? To send a message. And that was right after the revelation that is famously taught by the Catholics, that Peter was the first pope. But that is nothing to do. It's a play on words. Who do you say that I am? Peter said, you're the Christ, the Son of the living God. And Jesus said, well, my Father in heaven revealed that to you. And then he said, upon this rock, I'm going to build my church, and the gates of hell will not prevail against it. That is the area of Bashan, right at the foot of Mount Hermon. That's where the Watchers fell, right? He was stating that he was there to take back the nation. So when he crossed over and sent out the 72, he was letting them know, right? He was letting them know he was in their territory. And they said, well, don't send us into the abyss, because they knew that eventually he was going to be the one to judge everything, right? And but the reason that they didn't have to do that is because they are allowed to do what they're doing, okay? And when targeted individuals are dealing with these things, when they're dealing with people, some of them are getting paid by the government. Some of these people, they don't even know what the hell's going on. They just believe the indoctrinated baloney that's out there concerning mental illness and all this stuff. Or the agendas that are out there and all the things that we talked about before on the show, that is just basically disinformation. And it's a mechanism, right? People see you as a target individual and they say, oh, that person's paranoid. They're talking about things that are crazy. It's not logistically possible. They've got to be losing their mind. They're suffering from a persecutory delusion. They're mentally, they need to be medicated. They need to be lobotomized. They need to be sent to the psychiatric center. They need something. But they're whatever it is, they're just nuts, right? Is it true? No, it has nothing to do with that. They become part of it, right? They're part of that meat grinder. You get your leg caught. The perps are laughing. You're surrounded by them. They set the whole thing up, and then it just sucks you in like quicksand. The more you move, the deeper you go, right? But, ultimately, the hierarchy is controlled by these spiritual entities. They're everywhere. They're all around you. Okay, and you have to understand that. So make no mistake about what I'm saying. Okay, and a lot of people don't like it. They don't. Like I've mentioned before, if I wanted to be popular and get a huge channel, I would just sit around and talk about how the cops are doing all this stuff, and they're putting cameras in your house, and the Freemasons are calling them up, and the Illuminati's the head of the whole thing, and there's a supercomputer hiding in the underground cities under Colorado, and it's turning all these people against you. Now, I'm not saying they're not trying to do some of that stuff. I'm just saying that that I don't believe that. I believe that this infrastructure was already there, and even when you get into astrology or witchcraft or the occult or the Freemasons or the secret societies, you're going back to a singularity which ends with the kingdom of darkness. And all these people can be controlled and manipulated and choreographed and orchestrated around things. And you get something like the attempted assassination on Donald Trump, and you can see it happen to everyone. How'd that happen? That doesn't even make no sense. I'm telling you what. And you got some kid with acne, right? And glasses that gets off 8 shots, 150 yards from the president on a roof where everybody's yelling, pointing him out after he gets done flying a drone around and looking at the podium with a rangefinder. You got to be kidding. They're all around us, guys. I'm telling you right now, it is maximum gangstalking. And I want to see, who's out there in the live stream. Welcome, Just Me, Heidi. Awesome. Horrific that would happen. So you saw what happened, Just Me, Heidi, to Sonia Massey. Yeah. I think the guy manifested right there. That's just my opinion. What in the hell? I mean, okay, well, so his excuse was that he thought she was going to throw the pot of water at him. She wasn't She wasn't close enough to that dude to throw a big boiling pot of water. She wasn't even threatening him or anything, right? And some people, well, he was just a racist bigot. Oh, he was a lot of things. And I'm not saying that he was out sacrificing animals at the graveyard and that he's got some kind of red cloaked outfit in his basement and worship Satan. You don't have to. For that guy, I think he was possessed. And I think when she said, "I rebuke you in the name of Jesus," I think that whatever was in him manifested right there, and he shot her in the face. And that was horrific. Okay. Let's see. Firefighter, welcome to the live stream. Tanisha Cole, welcome. And she agrees. Yes, I saw that. Tanisha Cole, I think that was demonic. Bora Bora, welcome to the live stream. Holy Water, welcome to the live stream. Andy Smith, welcome. Okay, and it looks like I got a question here. Doc, what do you know about chemtrails with them using 5G and the Gwen Towers, test subjects, the military industrial complex? Well, there's a lot of things going on, and there's a big controversy out there of how this stuff is really affecting people. And I have to be careful in what I say on YouTube, okay? Because the video will get taken down and I'll get, a violation. And I have to be careful. I made a video about something that was involved in that and how you get, something, concerning particulates. So I'm trying to be real careful how I talk about this. And this is just speculation. I don't know this. I know chemtrails are legitimate. I know they're using stuff. People speculate as to exactly what is going on. We had that, thing out there in Mojave County and you can't find that on the internet. If you can, somebody put the link up or something like that, or post a video, or, to say where it is, because they used to show when all the people were protesting out there, when they found that they had barium in their blood, radioactive material from the chemtrails. And the government finally admitted that they were doing weather modification experiments out there. Right. But as far as I know, that's gone, and there's a big, cover up, and people are denying, oh, it never happened, But they're doing a lot of things. Desiccants can soak up, the water and stuff like that. Some type of controlled, I don't know, ecological demolition, along with, a lot of people are speculating about some of the rain up in Minnesota right now. I got a buddy that lives out there. And he swears, they got to be doing something because everything is flooded out. Last year and the year before, it was just a desert out there. Everything was drying up, and now they can't get it to stop raining. And there's been other people that have talked about weather modification when it comes to HAARP and stuff like that. So the other speculation has to do with nanoparticles and other things. We've talked about that, but different things involving nanobots and other, that would literally react to different signals created by, the aurora of 5G, which is soon to move to 6G, along with HAARP and other things. A lot of it's speculative, and like I said, the stuff that I've come across involves things that I can't talk about. Otherwise, I guarantee I'll get a violation. But chemtrails, that stuff is real. Okay. How it relates to 5G and stuff like that, yeah, I don't know. I mean, there's a lot of possibilities. Okay, there is, because you're looking at you're looking at just basically a wireless communication methodology there. And as far as the Gwen Towers, yeah, I mean, you don't, things are happening out there as far as technology that can't be denied. Some of the speculation could be wrong about that. I've seen, a lot of people, try to figure out exactly, what is happening to them. And I've talked about how it's difficult to figure out what kind of technology is being used and how you have to factor in, the whole idea of that dispensation of technology to mankind from the spiritual dimension that started, way back in the Genesis 6 account, and the fact that in the last 300 years, along with Tesla and everything else, we just jumped forward into where, it's beyond the technological advancement, that that started really manifesting around the time of the Third Reich, and then we get all these Nazi scientists and Operation Paperclip, and the next thing you know, we got all this stuff. It's not by mistake. Okay, don't forget that. So when you're looking at the military-industrial complex, you are looking at an entity that is beyond. I mean, it's like it's like a manifestation of the New World Order. It's even bigger than that, a lot of people would say. Okay. And I've talked about that before. A lot of people will look at the whole thing involving the Antichrist, and they'll look at this in a Hollywood version where you got nothing but economic coercion and some type of economic worship religion, the beast system or whatever. That's not it. That's the New World Order, in my opinion, is scarier than the Antichrist. The Antichrist is going to be a big deal in the cosmic geography over there in the Middle East, and there's going to be a mark. It's a literal mark, and there's going to be some really nasty stuff that happens. But as far as the New World Order, there's two different things. And the military-industrial complex, two different things, right? Highly technologically advanced, powerful resources beyond anything you could imagine, and corruption that you don't even want to know. Okay, it's there. Is that some of the things that people who are being experimented on are dealing with? Oh yeah, absolutely. And I've talked about the fact that when you deal with what happened, okay, here I go again, in the Oklahoma City bombing, that had to do with something that, if you want to look at it, look into the playlist, okay, and find that video, Emerging Viruses with Dr. Horowitz, and go up to the 34-minute mark, okay. There's a lot of experimentation that's going on by the government, and a lot of people who are in the military have been experimented on. So Gulf War syndrome was not caused by something that happened in the Gulf. That's all I'm going to say, okay. It's all in the video. The Oklahoma City bombing, there's more going on there. Okay. Just like there was more going on at the 9/11 incident. Okay. It's all connected. All these things are connected. So when you're dealing with the military industrial complex, you're dealing with a monster that is beyond. Okay. It is. Could it be involved in some of the stuff that some of the targets out there do? Yeah. But I don't know. I mean, like I said, I'm speculating. There's a lot of things that are floating around about that. But the thing you have to remember is that everybody's being manipulated. Like I said, you're surrounded by these things. It's like when you look at what happened in the pandemic, there were a lot of people that just laughed at everybody who were freaked out, lined up, at the grocery store at 5 o'clock in the morning, so they could get some toilet paper and some chicken soup. It's like Waterworld. People were fighting over the last can of Spam. And they're just sitting around laughing at everybody like they knew they had inside information. And I'm going to tell you right now, there are people who do. That is what the hierarchy is. Okay, so there's different levels of this stuff. There's different levels of it. But ultimately, when you're dealing with it, it's just like witchcraft. You're talking about something that is spiritual. And people are not only possessed and influenced by these entities, but it's like that's their handlers. Okay. And then they're the puppets that come after you. Okay. So there's a lot of people that know about this stuff already. So it's just like when I talk to targets and I say, well, I don't have anything against trying to gain awareness for target individuals, but are you really aware of where you are right now? Are you aware of what is around you? Okay. Are you really looking at the infrastructure of this world properly and understanding this stuff? Because if you're just thinking this is just nothing but government and corrupt cops or the Freemasons or something, you're missing the forest for the trees. Okay. You're not seeing what's around you. And remember that when you go out there and start handing out pamphlets and everything, there's a lot of people that already know about this stuff. And, trying to figure out who is who, good luck with that. When they come up and bite you in the ass, you're going to know. Okay, that you find out for sure at that juncture. But other than that, you are. I mean, this it's like that reality flip, right? You're surrounded already. You always were. You just didn't know it. It's a wake up call. Okay, complete wake up call. And I've talked about the benefit to that and also mentioned, the rude awakening that goes along with the delusion that is surrounding everybody, not just targets. Because, think about it. I mentioned this, I think it was either the last live stream, a couple live streams ago. You have people who are, it's one thing to deal with the jungle in the way the target individual is, right? You're getting harassed. You're seeing all this stuff for what it is. Your world falls apart. The rug's pulled out from underneath you. You're dealing with harassment in all these different geographical locations, and you can't seem to win for losing, right? But then there's other people that are completely bewitched by this whole system of vanity and these illusions that are around, and they think they've made it, right? They think that you're just nuts, right? They're driving in their brand new, luxury, vehicle, headed out to their smart cabin out in the woods with their, Generac generator hookup, and they think they've got all this stuff figured out, and they think it's all just corruption and science, and they've got all the prepping, everything figured out. They've got, the good job. They've got money put away. They've got everything, and they think that they've made it. Right? They've got the 2-car garage, everything the world has to offer, and they look at you or they look at other people. Oh, the unfortunates. It's just like the Calvinists and the determinists say, oh, we're the elect. We don't know. It's just a mystery, but God could do whatever he wants, and we just happen to be the benefactors of the world. And it's not that we're better or anything, but we get to live forever, and they have to go to hell as vessels of wrath. Oh, it sucked to be them, but I'm so humbled and humiliated by the whole thing. But isn't it wonderful and glorious, right? It's a rude awakening coming, because that's not true, is it? No. But they think they're the elect. What are they going to find out? They're the deceived. They are deceived. What about the people that think that they've made it in this world and they have all that stuff, the 2-car garage and they have all these things and the luxury vehicles and the swimming pool and the house in Beverly Hills, and they're looking at all these people. We should be thankful that we're one of the fortunates. And what are they going to find out? They were completely bewitched. They were completely blinded by this whole thing. Satan got them. He just didn't use the abrasive stuff. Honey in the vinegar, right? And they're going to end up in hell. It's not funny. I'm just saying, rude awakening. What about the stalkers? What about the people that are harassing you? Oh, look, at least we're not one of them. At least I'm not a targeted individual. Oh, it would suck. That would suck. I can't imagine what it would be like to be driven nuts and to deal with all this deprivation and oh gosh, boy, you pass me one of those Michelob Ultras. This is gosh, give me this is I'm gonna live it up while I can. But what is it gonna be later? It's gonna be worse, and it's never gonna end, right? What did you conformed so you wouldn't end up being a targeted individual for 20, 30, 40, 50 years, and now you're gonna go to hell forever, right? That ain't gonna work out. Okay, you lose. Rude awakening. Hello. Okay, that's something you got to keep in the forefront of your mind as a target individual. You're moving through this landscape. You're dealing with all this deprivation and frustration, and you're being attacked and so on and so forth. But what's real? What's the reality? How do you use your faith in that scenario? They're going to get judged. They're going to be dealing with it. All gangstalkers go to hell. Okay, unless you're in Jesus Christ. Right? Unless you're regenerate, unless you're being led by the Holy Spirit, you ain't got a prayer. Okay, you're going down, and it's this is the end all be all of the existence of the human race. Okay, like I said, you look into the Dead Sea Scrolls. I was watching a video about a near-death experience where this gal is, I was an atheist. And I didn't believe in life after death. And then I had this, horrible, medical experiment thing went wrong, and I ended up almost dying and all this stuff, and I prayed and all these things happened, and then she experiences this type of near-death experience where she finds out that everybody it's like this universalist delusion where everybody goes to heaven and there's unconditional love and it doesn't matter what you do and it doesn't matter, and then she gets duped by these entities to write these books, right? About how everybody's just, going to be together in this wonderful singularity and it's all love and unconditional. There's conditions. What's one of them? You're not a gang stalker. What's the other one? That you're in Christ and you have faith and you try to do the right thing and you draw near to God to try to be obedient. What happens if you don't? That's the condition, okay? And it's you're going to hell, okay? But then she has these different confirmations and all this stuff, and then she totally believed the whole thing. And there's all kinds of comments and, oh, it's wonderful. You look so vibrant and it's so, oh, that's beautiful. It was, oh, this little cabin, out in this, this land of mystery where she went, and her near-death experience where everybody just, goes to the singularity. It's, do you think the devil could probably pull something like that off? And what am I getting at is that you have to ignore all the archaeological evidence that's out there. The most reliable historical book ever written, the Bible, along with all the fulfilled biblical prophecy that is in your face. It's in your face. The regathering of Israel, right? All those things. The prediction of the coming of Jesus in 32 AD, the death of Jesus, not only by the Dead Sea Scrolls, but by the book of Daniel, to the day, 173,880 days, right? Exactly. Or 483 years. Exactly, after the decree of 444 BC. That's not a coincidence, okay? And you have to know what you're dealing with. So, yeah. All right, back into the live stream. Dublin Fitzpatrick, welcome to the live stream. Minnesota says the spirit of Joseph's brothers. That's an interesting example. I believe that'd be a good example of what happens to targeted individuals. That's a good point. A lot of people will focus on things like the prosperity gospel, and it's real confusing because lateral comparisons are used to create that sense of injustice. And a lot of people, they get chased out of church. I think Zeph Daniels has talked about that. A lot of targets will talk about gangstalking in church and stuff like that. I've experienced it, but really it wasn't the Church of God. That was just a building. And, the doctrines and stuff like that they were holding to, at least in the place that I went to and experienced that, were false. So it's not like the Church of God is, it's not like you're really in a legitimate, a lot of people will look at it. Well, the modern church is an apostate. Well, it's not the church. It's not the body of Christ. The body of Christ is made up of people who believe and have faith in Jesus, and they're everywhere. It's not the building down on 7th Street. But yeah, there's a lot of that stuff going on. But the whole delusion is that, it's like that external covenant of the Old Testament. If you're a believer, a lot of preachers will do, oh, God's going to fix this. He's going to fix your finances. He's going to heal your whole family, and your kids are going to get straight A's, and all this stuff is going to happen. And some of the people are led into a place where it looks like it's real, but only to frustrate the other people, right? The real people with faith, right? The devil will probably allow that, and the people who are just the shills or the people who are just in it for the money or whatever, he'll let them have that. And then the other people who are really seeking God, well, they're going to deal with that abrasiveness, and they're going to have to struggle through that and believe and look at the real examples in the Bible, like Joseph or Job or the apostles, and they're going to have to deal with the reality, because it does feel like you're being damned. It feels like you've been cursed by God. And a lot of the disinformation that comes to target individuals involves that kind of stuff, right? A lot of it involves accusations and rumors, or we heard what you did, or this and that. You don't know. But some of it involves that biblical stuff too, and it's just all encompassing. That was a good example, though. Okay, and I'm just looking through the comments here. All right. Tanisha Cole, the police that shot Sonia Massey was discharged from the military for bad conduct. This baffled me because it was more than that. He got fired off of like 8 different police stations. I think law enforcement was definitely the worst place for him to be. I wouldn't be surprised that he learned how to that he was more military, and that's the problem with a lot of the police now, is that you talk about the military industrial complex, and it's if you're one of those people that, depending on what state you're in, you want to carry a gun, you better be careful. I've seen there was a guy who used to be a cop, and he made a video and he says, this is why I don't I don't register my guns or have a permit for concealed carry anymore. And he explained how if they run your plates and they see that you have a permit for a concealed firearm or something like that, the cops will have their hands on their gun as they approach your vehicle. So if they're feeling twitchy and they know that you got a permit or something, oh, I thought he was reaching for his waistband, 5 holes through you. And yeah, you got to be careful. But anyway, you can do whatever you want on that. But that guy, he lost his job in several different police departments. So he shouldn't even have been a cop anyway. But I still think that guy was possessed. Okay. Well, Dublin wants to make a request here, and I'm assuming you're talking about a question. I like questions. Rise, welcome to the live stream. Hope you're doing well. Well, I'll be waiting for that when you put it out there, Dublin. And there could be a prayer request, which is good for everybody. If you have a prayer request, put it up in the comments. Maybe somebody will bring it to my attention, and I can put it out there so everybody can hear it on the playback. Okay, all right. Angels are real says they can get the link. Okay, well, thanks. Welcome to the live stream. And I'll go in here and I'll see if Dublin has answered the question here or put it out there. Nope, nothing yet. Yeah, Tanisha Cole says, I put my hands out the windows when I'm stopped by the cops as a friendly firearms. Oh, yeah. Exactly. Well, it depends on where you live, too. I mean, some of those places are, yeah, it's scary. I've seen it happen. There was a guy that worked in this area he shot 2 people within a year, at least. And one of the guys, I watched that on the replay, and he wasn't reaching for a gun. He had his hands up, and he got shot 3 times in the chest. And then as he was, going through the throes of death, flopping around on the back seat of this guy's vehicle, the cop was still yelling at him and telling him to hold still. Of course, the dude was just trying to breathe. His chest cavity was filling up with blood. It was horrific, man. It's horrifying. I don't have anything against cops. Okay, don't get me wrong. I like cops. We need the police. Absolutely, we do. I have nothing against cops at all. It's when I describe the infrastructure that you're dealing with, I am not demonizing anyone. I'm not even demonizing the secret societies necessarily in a way that they're in control of what's happening to you. I'm just saying that when people are out there in the world, that you are surrounded by individuals who are influenced and manipulated by spiritual entities. And that involves all the positions of power, period. Okay, well, I don't know if this goes along with what you were asking, Dublin. Dublin says, real Christian men, check on your females who are in need. Make sure the elderly, disabled are doing all right. Well, that's good. That's not bad. That's something that we should all do. It is. It's just something it's become something that back in the feminist movement was pushed back on in the sense that it was like the destruction of the patriarchal family, and it didn't work out. And now we have a lot of dysfunction. I mean, you got a huge portion of society that is just broken down and bankrupt morally and spiritually. By the way, have you guys ever seen that video of that it's like that when you get into psychiatry and the legitimacy of some of the stuff that they do, it's just so whacked out. But they have this guy, I don't know if you've seen him, he's like he's like 30 or 40 years old, and he's on disability, and he gets paid to basically sit home and act like a baby. Have you guys seen that one where he's playing with, I don't know, little blocks and stuff, and he's got this huge crib created for him where he lives in it, and it's just like he gets paid. I mean, it's like he's on disability for this. It's like, I don't know. It's because I know a lot of targets they're accused of not getting the help, that special, wonderful help from all the, wonderful psychiatrists and psychologists that are out there that have taken a generation of kids and addicted them to methamphetamines and everything else. Not to mention, all the dysfunction and tardive dyskinesia that's out there. Not saying that medication is all bad. I'm just saying that it's taken into a whole different level now. But yeah, evidently that guy, he just gets to sit around and be like a 3-year-old, and he gets paid. He's on disability. I don't know, whatever. You got to watch that one, guys. That's interesting. Okay, just looking at the comments here. Looks like I missed something that Robert asked. Bora Bora brought it up. And I'm going to look for that right now. Let's see where it is. Wow, it must have been way back there. I do get talking. And if I skipped it, I didn't mean to do it. So I'm looking for it right now. But I'm not finding it. Go ahead and post it again, because I'll have to scroll way up in the comments. Okay. Anyway, let's see. I think Nicholas has something to say here. I talked to the cops about it. If I said gang stalking, I get an eye roll. If I said being followed around, they take it seriously. But since I didn't know the people, so I think Nicholas' emphasis on that is kind of like this. It's the same thing that women are told when they're being raped. Don't scream rape or anything like that. Scream fire, and people will come running, right? If you're dealing with the gang stalking, or you're dealing with something where the perps are attacking you or whatever, you think you have to call the police. I don't think it would be a good idea for you to start talking about gang stalking. Okay, just say, you've been assaulted or, whatever. I wouldn't, unless you got proof or whatever, I wouldn't do that. But if you feel your life is in danger or something happens or you want to fill out a report or whatever, in case you do get evidence, sometimes that happens. You got to be careful how you do it. Okay. Okay. So sorry about that, Robert. I'm still looking. I'm gonna go. See, I haven't seen it yet. Huh. Well, you got to remember, I'm looking through a magnifying glass right now too. So let's see. Well, I'll go ahead and post it again, and I'll get to it. Eric Anthony says, "Is it worth it to report cops?" I don't know. I wouldn't. You're already dealing with it anyway. Well, you can go ahead and ask me again if you want, Robert. Because like I said, I can't find the comment. I apologize for that. But if you want to post it again, we can get to it right now. Okay, let's see here. Okay, well, if people start crying around that I'm not answering their comment, I can't see all this stuff. If you want to put it up there again, I'll do it. And Nicholas says, you talk about hearing things. They obviously want you to get evaluated. But I made a police report about the stalking without adding crazy sounding stuff, and it seemed to help back them off a little. Yeah, that's definitely something you want to do. And Bora Bora says she can't find the comment either. Yeah, well, all you have to do is ask it again. It's not rocket science. Okay. Dublin says she's not crying. No, don't do that. Okay, let's see here. Okay. Eric Anthony says, what if I feel like I've lost all reason to live because of stalking? Does reporting even do anything? Well, it depends on what kind of evidence you have. No, if you don't, I mean, that's the problem with gangstalking is designed in a way that is surrounded by plausible deniability. And when you're calling, the cops or talking to a psychiatrist, or a lot of people say these people are in on it, the people are, you're one of the perps. It's not always like that. Okay. And you have to remember this is a complete reality flip, and it's used against a small minority of the population. And in doing that with the methodology, like I said, it wouldn't work if you used it on a lot of people because everybody would know. Okay. When, if somebody came forward and said, this is happening to me and it was happening to a lot of people, everybody would believe them. Okay. It's pretty simple, but because it's such a small minority of people, now you're just nuts. Right. So unless you have evidence, unless you have proof or whatever, and that's another problem with targets. They get burns on their skin, or they got evidence of lasers or something, or some type of direct energy weapon. But who's using it? Right. I mean, it's like that question I got earlier about the military industrial complex or Gwen Towers. Or who knows who the hell it is? That's the problem with a weapon like that, is that, there's plausible deniability, even if there's evidence that somebody's being attacked or they have Havana syndrome or whatever. Well, now the question is, who the hell's doing it? Maybe it's a foreign power. Maybe it's a group of vigilantes or something. You don't know who it is, right? So reporting it is a catch-22. It's like Nicholas said. You start, talking, and eventually, you start digging a hole for yourself. And if you don't have evidence, there really is no point in doing it. And I've talked about the fact, as far as losing all reason to live or whatever, I get it. I mean, it's demoralizing. It doesn't. I mean, if life is supposed to be lived. I mean, you want to be happy. You want to have things to look forward to. And targeted individuals get attacked in such a way where it doesn't seem like there's anything left to look forward to. It seems hopeless. It seems dismal. Your life is painful and it's full of isolation and so on and so forth. And my sympathy goes out to you. But that's why we draw near to God and ask Him for help. And I think there's times of refreshing, and there's sometimes it feels like you're ready to give up, ready to give in, but you just have to do that and realize that, there's a bigger picture here and that there's more going on. And this is not the end all be all of who you are. If it was it, right? If this was all there was, and there wasn't life after death, there wasn't judgment or anything, that would be depressing. A lot of target individuals will talk about that. Well, I don't believe in that. I just believe this stuff is the government. I don't know, and we got to get a voice for it. I'm losing everything, and we got to fight back, or it's going to be too late. Well, the world is under the control of Satan right now. I'm not. Which is one of the reasons I'm not into passivity, but I'm not a political activist either. Okay, we got to do what we can do, vote, and so on and so forth. But you got to be realistic at the same time, and you got to be realistic in a way that you're focused on what is after this, not necessarily what you can have now, which is it's all going to be gone anyway. I don't know how old you are, but I'm getting up there, and if I have another 20 years, I'll be surprised. You never know. Maybe I'll have another 30, 35. I have no idea. Maybe I'll have another 5. I don't know. But 6 of this, half dozen of the other. It's going to be over eventually. Okay. The stuff that is dangled in front of people in this world, that's what I was talking about before, it's going to go up in smoke. Okay. You're born, you start to die. The second you're born into this world, you grow, you have, 15 to 25 years of vitality, and then you start getting old, then you start speed rotting, and your joints start giving way, and life, you get tired, and everything becomes painful. Everybody is headed in the same direction. And then you die, and everything that you've accumulated, everything you work for, you either forget or you lose when you die, and it's gone. Right? It's what Solomon was all depressed about in Ecclesiastes. Right? You do all this stuff, and then you end up dying. Well, that's not it, though. That's just what it is here. And God subjected the creation to futility in hope that by submitting to Him through the trials and tribulations and hardships and the tyranny of the world, the flesh, and the devil, that you could be liberated and conformed into the image of Christ and have life forever. Okay, that's the hope. It's not that not that a lawsuit would be bad. That'd be good. I can handle that, man. I pray for that for you guys every day, multiple times, that the target individuals would experience justice, that they would experience redemption, not only after this, but before, right? By the laws set up in the land that we're dealing with now. Yeah, that'd be great. But if it doesn't happen, well, you're in good company, because a lot of Christians have died that way. They got, killed in the Roman games, mauled and eaten by animals, and, lit on fire like torches, persecuted, murdered, thrown in prison camps. The Jewish people have been, chased around by demonically influenced people and evil people for thousands of years now. Okay, this whole thing is a nightmare. The apostles were killed in horrific ways. They were, drugged through the streets. Peter was hung upside down. Paul was beheaded, so on and so forth. The Revelator John was boiled in oil and set out on exile to an island. They couldn't kill him. They finally brought him back. I mean, this is not all the things that you're looking at that supposedly they're taking away from you was gonna be nothing anyway. Okay, all this stuff it's cotton candy. Okay, it looks good. It seems it's mostly just used to deceive people. It's like an illusion. So remember that. This is going to be over one day, and I know it's hard, and I know it's depressing, and I know it's lonely. But if you do that, if you draw near to God, and you cry out to Him, there's going to be times of refreshing. And ultimately, there's going to be complete 100% justice, vindication. Everybody's going to find out. Okay. The temptation is just believe that all this stuff is gone. You're looking back in your past. You're looking at social media. You're seeing everybody living their life. They're having fun. And then everybody just thinks you went nuts. And it's just depressing. But it's a lie. That is a mechanism and a tactic of the enemy to get you to depressed, to get you into that type of tyranny where you believe that they have control over these things. And these people are just getting away with it, and you lose. But that's just for now, and that's almost over. Okay, literally. So, yeah, think about it that way. Okay. Okay. Firefighter says 18 U.S. Code 242 prohibits this type of surveillance. There isn't a DA American who cares about enforcing the law system rigged. Yeah, there's always a loophole. There's always a way around it. That was really what the Patriot Act was all about. And people talk about the list that people get on where they can be survived. I think everybody's on the list now. And, people, say, well, how do I get off the list? And that's how I'm going to get my Gangstalking down. I don't think so. It's bigger than that. But, it's just the fact that people can lose that right to privacy is that is unconstitutional, period. Okay. Well, guys, there's something I've got to attend to here pretty quick, and I just thought I'd come on. I know that that targets are dealing with a lot of tyranny and deprivation. I know I am, and I like to get together with you guys. And on the weekend, I would prefer to be hanging out with people and being a social creature. I love to talk. I love to socialize, so on and so forth. But with all the things that we're dealing with as targets, sometimes it just doesn't work that way. And going out to the bars and stuff like that's probably not a good idea anyway. But for targets, it's a really bad idea. So I like to do these on the weekends. Hopefully, we can continue to get together on Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. If nothing else, I gotta go to work tomorrow, so I can't make any promises about what's going to happen tomorrow night. But I would like to thank everybody for all your prayers and support. It helps, and I didn't know if I thought maybe Dublin had a prayer request, but I guess as far as checking in on and women and elderly people and the people you love is a good suggestion. And remember, if you guys have any topics or anything you want to ask me, sorry I didn't get to your question, Robert. I looked for that, and I don't know if I skipped it. I'm going to look one more time because I don't want to do that. Well, the comments move fast, so or anything up front. Let's see, there was something here. Nope. Nobody asked again, as far as I can see. Yeah, Bora Bora said I couldn't find it either, Robert. It's too far up in the chat. It's gone off my screen. Well, anyway, so that would have been interesting to get to. But like I said, guys, put something in the comment section. I can always bring it up on the next live stream and get to that. But remembering, what you're dealing with as a target individual, processing information correctly is very important, because you don't want to get into that place where being manipulated. You don't want, that invasion into your psyche to turn into propositional tyranny. Okay. And you want to be realistic. Okay. Remember, the attack against you is negligible. Okay. This isn't just about you. This is about the kingdom of darkness condemning and devouring people, creating war and bloodshed and misery and deception in the world. And we're just part of that. We're part of that menagerie. We're definitely in the trenches as targeted individuals. And like I said, it is painful, and it's hard to look around you and see, the lateral comparisons that are meant to confuse and deceive people, but don't buy into it. Remember that your hope is in Christ, and this life is not the end all be all of your existence. And it's very tempting to look back down the labyrinth that you're dealing with and just see nothing but a wasteland, right? And the voices and the narrative that can come at you will lie to you and tell you that it's all gone, that you have failed, that you have lost everything, and that there's just no hope. But that's not true. That's a lie. Okay. And you can live forever in Christ, literally. Okay. And you have to remember that. That's one of the benefits of Gangstalking. You have to deal with the problem of evil, and it's in your face. Okay. The logistical situation that is around the target forces them into reality. Yeah, it's painful, but it's probably the only way to get, your attention. I mean, for all I know, if I hadn't experienced this, I just would have been like one of the people going off into nowhere and thinking that I was successful, thinking that I had it all figured out, when really I was blind, bewildered, and bewitched. Guys, God bless. Be good to yourselves. Be safe.